whenever you're ready.
Okay. And it's recording now?
It is recording now.
Ooh. Okay.
So the recording is recording your face and that screen.
And that screen. And the audio from my computer?
Audio from your computer. So your computer is in charge of input and output audio.
Okay. And so you don't really hear their questions, right?
Yeah, you don't really hear their questions, so that's why you're always going to repeat their questions.
Especially for remote students.
Yeah.
And in general for the recording.
Just in general.
Okay.
Sure. Whenever you're ready.
Okay. Am I ready? Okay, so today we're going to be going over Django for the first day. The guitar music that someone muted from my computer was who Django was named after, a jazz musician. Let's see, let's go over the history of where it came from. So, where was it? The Mozilla one had a good one. I had it pulled up here. So what is Django and I for Django? And where did it come from? It came in 2003 and 2005 as an internal project in a newspaper company. I think it's in Kansas. And they were using Python to make websites, and they decided to open source it, you know, in 2005, so not long after. And from there it grew, and now you have Discuss, Instagram, Mozilla, National Geographic, all these people using Django. I think this website is actually made from Django too. And yeah, Django is only part opinionated. You can read about that if you like. So today we're going to be focusing on models. So models are like kind of like the backbone of your app. That's where you describe like the different entities that kind of live there. Like if you have a attendance app, you can have students and teachers and classes, and those are all going to be models. You're going to read and write data to the database. The model is your database in Python instead of SQL. It's the Python representation of your data. It will trade information with the views. The views will kind of decide what the user will see, like which information, obviously not the whole database and not the whole model, but certain parts of it, and it'll turn it into an HTML response for the user. Templates are kind of these tools to help display the information. And yeah, so let's get into the lesson. Okay, so when I said we're going to be focusing on the model, we're going to talk about the ORM. And the ORM is like, it's called Object Relational Map, and it's a fancy acronym for the translator. You're translating from SQL to Python. If you Google ORM, you have a nice graphic here. You have your database, and you have a SQL statement that's a string, right? And you have your ORM, which Django provides you. And to get an appreciation of why we need that ORM instead of writing it ourselves, let's try writing it ourselves. Okay, so let's say I'm just gonna write in the bottom of this file. So if we wanted to give a query to a database in SQL, what would we give it? Like, let's say I wanted to select, give me all the students in a class. And what format would this be in? String, right? And the thing is, students wouldn't be a string if we're using Python, right? We have some Python method. And we'll give it a parameter, right? Did you guys do this for assessment 3? You did something like it? So if it's just like, you have like, if you have a really complex one, like let's say you want all the students from a class that got a certain grade or above, out of all the teacher, a certain teacher, right? All of a sudden you're gonna have like this really complicated SQL statement, inner join, blah, 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 right? And you have all these interpolated Python variables like teacher and student and goodness knows what else. And the moment you change that function to do something a little different, you have to write basically a whole new function and a whole new method to make a completely different string to translate it into SQL. Instead of that, the ORM gives you, so it'll give you models, and the models will be like student, which will be like a Python class, and it'll have methods, and it'll have methods that relate to the database. So when you want to do something to a database, what are things you want to do to a database? Add data, update, select. Okay, so yeah, like single word methods, like let's say update student, let's say students would be all the students, right? So you have a particular student, you have you can set a variable and call from the database query and say, I want a specific student. So instead of some long SQL statement, you can say student dot and then some query. And really, and then you'll have your student and you can update it by saying like, I'll update, name is this. And you can just, instead of a SQL statement, it'd be a lot easier because you're just working with a Python dictionary. You just have an object and then it's an entry in the table. All right, that picture, yeah, here it is. It's a Python object. So it's a lot easier to deal with a Python object. You know how to do that. It's pretty easy. Writing the SQL statement is a lot harder. So we went over creating a virtual environment already, right? So right now I have a virtual, I think I have a virtual environment here. Why? No, I deactivated it. Anyhow, so let's say I want to make one. So we have source vnv/bin/activate, and then we have it. And to start our new Django project, we can install Django. Oh, I already made this virtual environment. It's okay. And Django admin, maybe I'll go to a different one. Wait, didn't I deactivate it?
You gotta remove the folder.
Remove the folder? Oh goodness, okay.
You already activated the version environment and you installed it.
Uh-huh.
So you're good. You're good. So
Oh.
reactivate it.
Oh, okay. And I will Django admin start project. And I'm gonna call this attendance. So now it says to CD into attendance. So do I have an attendance? Yes, I do.
Yeah.
And let's look at what's inside.
Mike, I'm going to interrupt you real quick,
Mm-hmm.
and no disrespect, man.
No.
I just want to throw in some things in case some things don't make sense. So an ORM is basically a translator between the Python language and SQL. That's all it is. It's a layer that sits on top of SQL that you can use Python to talk to it, and then the ORM itself will translate it to SQL. It's kind of like saying, when I throw my car, if you have an automatic car, it automatically jumps up and down in terms of the gear shifting, right? If you go faster and your RPMs go to a certain point, it shifts over to the next gear, and you don't need to worry about that when you have an automatic car, because it translates that for you. Like there is a layer on your car in terms of like the electronics that translate whether or not you need to move on to the next gear or move down a gear. The same applies here with this like Python ORM. Instead of writing the actual SQL code, you write Python, and then the Python will translate it into SQL code for you underneath the hood.
I would also throw in that ORM is not specific to Python. You see them in every language. Like they had this concept of an ORM is a programming concept, not just, but Python and Django have one. And Ruby on Rails has one. And Java has one, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
It just translates the database into a scripting language. I know it's a lot today, don't worry, like if you look at the curriculum, we have these 3 challenges, and if you look, where's my back button?
Double click on the top black portion of this, all the way to the right of the tab button. You go up, right there, double click.
Whoa, okay. So if you look, the next 3 days, you have the same challenges. You'll have some time to get used to the concepts. So don't worry about understanding everything right away. So I just CD'd into our project, which we created, and this is what we would call like a boilerplate Django project. Like it's just what you get out of the box with Django. So let's walk through it. Close this one. Okay, so we have attendance. We also have in the same directory a manage.py. We'll use that later. We have these settings, and we have some other files. So the settings you want to remember, it is where you do all your configurations. So here you see installed apps. I think that might be coming up. So I'm going to skip down here for a second. So a Django project is split into many apps. So you're going to have different functionalities in your app or in your project. And then each app is going to be one of those functionalities. Like we have billing, search, different parts of your project. This file structure actually is looking pretty slim right now. Not that bad. It's like 5 files. You'll as you add things, you'll see it grow. And don't worry about that. You don't have to worry about what each file does. When I was learning Rails, there were so many files. I had no idea what they did, and I never touched. And that's okay. You just look at the files that you need to do what you need. So let's continue with the assignment. So we want to create a database. And I'm going to say create DB school. Okay, so we have an error because school already exists. So I tried this before, and so Postgres lives outside of our virtual environment. And even if you create a different virtual environment, it looks like the same Postgres database is still alive. So we're going to drop it. And let's create a blank one. Okay.
So even if you create the database inside the virtual environment, it exists outside of it?
I think so. It exists outside of it. I think the virtual environment is just for Python.
Oh, so wait. What are we using right now?
What are we using?
When you create a virtual environment,
Mm-hmm.
like I was using like the JS yesterday, so then I want to download something. But I didn't create a virtual environment because the virtual environment is created through Python. So can I create a virtual environment through Python and still download things? Is that the reason why it would be like outside of the environment?
So the Python virtual environment is to manage different versions of different software. That is their way of handling different versions of different software. Inside of JavaScript, they have a different way of handling that. So the Python virtual environment will not affect other things that you install, like Postgres or JavaScript.
So like if you npm install something,
Yeah.
it'll locally
It'll globally install, yeah. So if you do npm, there's little flags at the end. There's -G for global, so that will install your entire machine. If you want to do --save, it'll just be saving it to that particular package.json, which is the same thing. It's just doing pip install inside a virtual environment.
And then save dev is for when you want something like that you want to test, like testing things, but in the production, it won't have it, and you'll say save dev. We'll go over that with React, I'm sure. See, so we just created this Postgres database, and we'll hook up to it in a bit. So this is the library that helps Django talk to Postgres. Sounds kind of like ORM. Let's see. I'm gonna just switch to this terminal. Why not even working? Pardon me. So we have pip install psychopt2. Where'd it go? And uh-oh, we have an error.
Virtual environment.
Oh, that's what it is. Should I have kept that one? We'll just do that, huh? So we have pip install. Looks like I already installed it. So I'm going to use Postgres as a database instead of the SQLite 3. Okay, so you want to go to databases inside of school/settings. So you're going to see a lot of this kind of notation. This comment is to let you know where in the file structure, in the Django directory, in your project directory, that this file is. So when it says school/settings, you want to go to our, oh wait, I called it attendance, but attendance/settings, and you see, what was this? Say databases, right? So let's copy this and go, oops, and find database. Where was that? Here. So that's what it came with, and this is what we're given. So what's the difference? It's the name's different, and this here as well. It looks like we're just changing SQLite to Postgres, so we'll just delete this.
You want to change the name?
The name?
Is that what you called your database, or is that?
That is what I call my database in Postgres. It's not what I called my project, but that's good. That we'll see if it matters, right? Okay, now we create our app. So this I feel like this is what's gonna create that big file structure we're talking about. So Python manage.py. So we saw that file name before. Looks like whenever we wanna do anything like administrative, we use methods in here. I should just in this too. It looks like it finished okay. I have a warning. Release. I'm just gonna ignore that for now. It's just a warning. Let's see. I have a new folder called students. And it has all these files in another folder in there. Okay, so we have our admin, apps, models, test views. Models will be where we have our database. We talked about views briefly. We have tests that aren't written yet. And oh, we have students in our app. So we have one app called students. And that's probably because we put students right here. So we still need to add this app to our project. In school/settings.py, we have to add, let's just copy this whole thing. and we have, instead of school, it's attendance, slash settings. Installed apps. So it looks like it's all the same. We just added students at the end. I'm gonna put a hanging. I used to not like those, but it's good to follow whatever is in the file already. And then, what do we do? Now we can create a student model. So this is a different file. You can see the hashtag, the comment. In this file, students/model, so students/model, models, we have this. So looks like we can just delete this. So what do we have here? We have our model. It's a Python class, and it gets this model object from Django. We have what looks similar to a, what does this remind you of, this character field? Column type, yeah. Yeah, so it's saying like, what kind of data do we want in this column? And this column will be called name. This column is email, and we can just keep adding columns that way. And that's how we define our database in Python.
Just to interject real quick, the class student, the student, the capital S, is the name of your database table. The left side of equals is the column name, and the right side is the column type. So a
Yeah,
class,
I should have said the name.
the class of like a model corresponds to a class, which directly corresponds to a table in your database. So instead of writing create table students, like name is varchar or something like that, you literally just write this, and this will translate into Python code for you.
What's the max length, is that like how long the column can be? How many
Yes,
rows
that
in
is.
the column?
Remember when we did like varchar 255? We're only allowed.
Oh, so it's just the.
It's just the. It's
that-
just the.
The length of the string. Yeah, not the column.
Now, is this the Psychon thing, or is this the Django?
This is Django. Django is powered by Psychon.
So is Psychon the ORM that we're using?
No, Django ORM is the ORM.
We get it.
And does Django ORM create an automatic ID field for you?
Yes.
Yeah, that's nice. So let's see what we got brewing here. We created a Python class. It is a table/model. Now let's finally get this table into the database. So a migration. We already saw what creating and dropping a table is. You've done a lot of creating and dropping. So have you done a migration before? A migration is when you take a set of database structure and you change the database structure, that's an active database, and change the structure. It's a little, in the beginning, you don't have to worry too much. You'll just drop the table and then create a new one, maybe. But if you already have data in the table that you don't want to lose, and you want to change the structure of the table, then you're going to have to make a migration. And that's going to change the, let's say you want to add, I keep saying table, I mean database. Like if you want to add a table to a database, and
Which one is migrating? The table or the database?
You can migrate many tables into a database
Okay. Okay. So the table.
without killing the database, dropping it and then starting it again. You can keep the data that's in it. This is just making the code that will perform the migration. So you're making a migration, you're not migrating yet. You have students, you made this new file. Let's look at it. Student/migration/0001, student/migrations. There it is. So we just created this file with that command. And it has some Python that will tell us, you can see the ID was automatically made there. Serialized false is nice because if you have serial IDs showing up, it's kind of, you're giving away business logic if you have that showing up in the URL. And you have your name and the email. Okay.
Has a question.
Mm-hmm.
So it automatically added in that auto field equals true ID.
Yes. Let me see what you're looking at. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. That's the ID thing was this whole file was automatically created. It just looked at the name and model that we gave it in the models. This is what it looked at. What was the command we gave it? I think it was just a general migrate. Yeah. Oh, it was with students. Yeah, so it knew where to look. So we have our class students here, and it looked here, and it wrote the code.
Didn't it look at the folder students because you could ask?
Yeah, it looked at the folder called students.
So it would check everything that you have in
Yeah.
it.
So essentially what it does is when you do Python make migration students, it looks inside the students folder. So that one that he's highlighting right here. It looks inside the models. It says, okay, let's create a migration based off of what the models say.
So anything in models.
You can add whatever you want inside of there, and it will automatically detect what was already there and what's new.
Yeah, and that's what's kind of like, it's great. So like if you wanted to update something in SQL, you had to write like an update. You had to worry about a lot of stuff, right? There's not a lot. There's annoying. But yeah, if he makes changes to the models and runs migrations again, it'll generate all that SQL code to update your tables for you. It'll say, oh, you changed your models? Cool, I'll handle that for you.
So we just generated this migrations folder, and we already looked at the code. So this is what will actually change the database. Instead of make migrations, we're going to migrate. Okay. So it looks like it worked. Let's check out our database. How do we display our database? First, /d. Okay. It looks like we have a lot there, but at the end, we can see that we made a students_student table. It's probably empty. How will we display what's in it? Select everything from students.
Can you just do /d students?
Let's try. /d students.
You have to do the name of the table.
Ah.
Students.
Groups.
Select.
It goes folder name and then the name of the class.
So that did something. We have an ID, not null. They're all not null. Next val, students ID, okay.
Can we see the actual, can you select, is there any data in there yet?
I think what you were saying would do the same thing.
No, it won't do the same thing. It would select the
Really?
table.
Oh, nothing. There's nothing there.
Semicolon.
Oh, it's the same thing.
You did access.
Oh my gosh. What happened? Anyway,
Press enter a bunch of times.
enter. Oops.
Try command C. Should you just put a semicolon?
Yeah.
Press enter. There is something wrong. It's unescaped somewhere. Yeah, just press that. There you go.
Oh. Oh, it was a space. No, wait.
No, /D doesn't need the semicolon.
I would just say.
Oh. Okay. So we have empty table, and it is different. That's good to know.
Did the not null automatically go into that?
Yeah.
Not null, yes, it automatically went in there. And if we want it to not to be, nullable, then we're probably gonna have to put some extra code in there.
Yeah, the char field is null equals false or something like that. There's a keyword cited for it.
No, I'm sure it's not too much code. So we migrated, and we have our columns in there in our table. And now we're going to install Python console. I probably already have these, but let's just go through it. No? IPython. That's taking a while, huh? Okay. So we install these extensions, but we're gonna have to tell Django that we actually want to use them. And we're gonna do that in the installed apps, back in the settings file that we looked at earlier. I already know, I just want this one, so. Where is it? Settings. You can see we're jumping all around this directory, but we're only really going to like 2 or 3 files. So just don't worry about the directory. Now we can start our shell. Let's see. That's through the managed py file again. Oh, we're in our Python shell. Awesome. So we have a model, right? Let's make a student in this shell. And a shell is kind of like it's kind of like the console in a browser with the JavaScript. Whatever works in this shell, whatever you can get to work in this shell, just okay, it works. Copy and paste those commands that you wrote into the shell into your app, and it'll work there. This is just an instance of your app running.
So this has no effect on the actual application itself.
It does. This didn't, because all we did was create a variable. So that didn't actually have an effect. But once
So when you do Python, remember when you just do like, if you just type in Python at your terminal, you get a Python shell. You can do like 3+5 or create a method in Python to run. This IPython shell, this shell plus thing that we ran on the very top there, is the Python shell with your entire app loaded in.
You can actually see it from Django, import, blah, 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 blah.
So when he just made this student model, that actually add.
No, so it hasn't been saved yet.
Okay.
You can see it from that none right there. It doesn't have an ID, so it's currently you created it. We haven't saved it to the database. Understood. I think he's going to do that next year.
So saving to the database, because of our wonderful ORM, it's pretty easy. So it looks like just .save saved this entry into the database, and we can check. I think we can check from here.
This we want to do select here.
Oops. Yay! So this workflow of create our student, edit it as a Python object or dictionary, whatever, and then which is pretty easy, and you just save it into the database, and that's pretty awesome.
So until you see an actual ID in the parentheses after the student object, it has not been saved.
So I actually haven't done this yet, but let's see if we can. So we have student, right, John? Well, okay, we'll do that later. Yeah? Student. Oops.
Student.objects and all.
Oh, yeah. Oh. All right, it's just a little typing. Okay. And then let's see if I can get the first one.
So underneath the hood of this, you got student.objects.all. That's something that's more like Python. We kind of think like that. But underneath the hood, whenever you type student.objects.all, there's no magic. It's just doing select star from student. That's all it is. And then, okay. And then the second one here, it's like, since we're used to using things in like Python and like those kind of data structures, we can just do student.objects.all, which returns the thing above. But we can take the first object inside that query set, which is that student. You can find the name of it. All underneath the hood is just select name from students, order by ID, limit 1. That's literally all they're doing. It's just translation, but it's code that for some people this is a little bit easier to use than pure SQL.
Oops. So I just changed John's name. Do you think it's changed in the database?
Not until you save it.
Right. I mean, you guys are pretty bad. I could show you, but let's just try. Now, is it saved in the database? That makes it a lot easier than what we were doing before, right? Yeah, this is what we were doing before. No thanks.
I can get behind that.
But if we just started with that, it's not really even about the appreciation, it's about the understanding. Like now you know, like you can talk so much more intelligently about that to somebody, and you actually do have to know a little bit of SQL, like when things print out in the log to find out what's wrong. So.
Owen has a question.
Oh yeah.
When we calls students.objects.all, is it returning it as a table?
It's returning it as a collection of Python objects.
Yeah, it's returning it as a query set object.
Query set object.
Query set object is basically just an array of results that match.
It's doing exactly what we did in schools when we were reading from the CSV file, and then we were turning all those rows into objects. It's the exact same thing that's happening here. You're just getting a big collection of objects that represent all the rows of data, so that they're easier for us to use, because objects in Python we can do object.this and et cetera, et cetera.
One more question.
Sorry.
The migration. I know we have to migrate in the beginning because of the installed apps off the beginning, us having what we did. Do those correspond to the databases or the tables in the database that you saw that we had extra? Like when you made migrations, all those ones we had installed apps, they weren't migrated just yet. Are those the tables that we saw in Usable?
I'll let Mike answer this one first.
So the tables are made from the migration. Before, when we made the database with Postgres, it was blank. There were no tables. And when we said make migration, migrations are kind of like, you don't want to mess them up. You might have to do them a certain way to save the data that's already in the database. You don't have to worry about that, when you're just designing your app. But when let's say like Instagram wants to change what their database structure is, then they have all this data that if they lose, they're gonna lose a lot of money, right? And they're going to make the migration, make the files for it before actually running those files and actually changing the database. So the make migrations made the migrations folder with the migration in it. And it made this, but this didn't change Postgres. This hasn't changed Postgres yet.
I understand. What I'm asking though is, go back to installed apps.
Okay. Installed apps
In
in settings.
Yeah, see those top ones?
Oh.
Because I know those come preloaded,
Mhm.
and when you migrate, like I've done this. You run server, it says you got to migrate these. I just wanted to see if those were the actual tables.
Oh yeah, yeah, they are. See? Can I not scroll? Oh. They're the same.
Yeah, those are built into basically Django needs them in order to run the app.
Yeah.
So
They're
there's a
kind of
bunch
double
of
that.
magic underneath the hood, but it's like this is just what's required in order for the app to run.
So these tables right here, these are from the app, like Django. And no matter what we're doing, we will always see those. Okay.
Yeah, so if you go back real quick, Mike, to the terminal.
Uh-huh.
So basically everything besides the last two tables,
Right.
The table in the sequence, the student, everything above it, so all 19 other things, are required in order to run Django. So I wouldn't even worry about those things, because unless you really want to get into like what makes Django tick, just worry about the things that you put in.
That's probably why I didn't get what you're talking about, because like when I'm going at it, I'm just like a horse with those blinders. Like there's so much in a framework usually, like this big directory. I just focus on what I need to and try not to touch anything and break it, something I don't understand.
So do those get created on Like when you start a new project or when you do your initial manage?
The initial migration.
Are you saying? Are you saying are these tables in the database created? Which command creates all of these?
Yeah, are they created?
It's the migrate command.
So the make migrations and the migrate, that is to change your database structure, but just to import data and save it, you don't need to do that. You just simply use that save function.
So the save function comes after you have stuff inside the database.
Yes. So you have your table structure and
Yes.
everything, and then you're just putting data in. You don't need to do the make migrations to save that data. It's just that save function.
The migration is only changing not the content, not the data itself, but the structure of the database. Like if you want to add a column to a specific table, if you want to add 3 more tables, if you want to take some tables out, that's migration. If you want to just change the data that's already in there, like even if you wanted to change, I want to change this column from varchar, increase the limit of this, that would still be migration.
A migration is literally just a file that keeps track of what you're going to change inside the database. And then you'll notice if you go back, Mike, to the VS Code, the name of this one is 0001. It runs things in numerical order. So the next migration you make will be 0002 and so on and so forth. And what it does is it runs all of migration 1, then migration 2, then migration 3 and 4 in that particular order. Because if you're thinking about even any website that you can imagine, they probably had like a big website like Amazon. First started off with books, then moved into some other category, then moved into some other category. So those are additional migrations to add on additional tables and column names. Then they had a product, they had phones at one point, so they probably had a phones table in the database. And the phones suck, so they're like, okay, let's kill the phones inside the database. So they probably had a migration that was like create a table called phones, then another one that said drop table called phones. So by running all of your migrations in a particular order, you're going to have the correct database by the end at all times. So the make migrations just makes this file, and that's it. The migrate will actually execute this file. And then you can go inside the database in the shell and then update with .save and stuff.
So you don't have to make migrations anymore, you just have to migrate them?
You have to make migrations every single time you change the models. So it's change models,
Let's try.
make migrations, migrate, and you're done. Then repeat that process.
Is make migrations kind of staging it?
Make migrations is literally making that file.
Oh, okay.
So
it makes that new file.
It's just makes a file. It doesn't do anything to the database. Once you run migrate, then it says, okay, I've already executed number 1, let's move on to number 2. I think it has to, I don't think it can be. So I think that it goes into
The 2 adventures.
let's go with city. Another column.
Not the column city. Now let's make the migration. Will my virtual environment carry over?
No.
Oh.
You can exit out of here though. Go to the left screen and just exit.
Yeah, okay. So, what was the syntax? Make migration students. Uh-oh. Model is not defined.
Scroll up.
Class students model. Uh-oh, it is this.
Oh, go back. Next scene. It's
Oh
models.
no! Okay. We're trying to add a non-novel field city to student without a default. We can't do that. Database needs something to populate existing rows. Okay, so provide a one-off default now, or quit. Okay, I'm gonna try and define a one-off default. Enter default value as the date time,
Just say Chicago.
Chicago. Okay, so let's see. I guess it's not null, huh? And it was already a database. So, did this change our database?
So if you would have defined that to be able to have a null value, that probably came up, right?
I mean, yes, correct.
And also, if
Like
it
a
was
node.
blank, like if John wasn't already on there and not John wasn't already on there, it would have just made it the same. They made that other one.
That's a good question. I'm not sure if it reads that we already have data or if it's just like, I don't care.
No, it's all subsequent.
Yeah, so it doesn't care if you have data or not. It just knows, hey, you already ran a migration with a bunch of, or
But
I think it
those
was
other
something
ones were
like-
not null too, and it let us create those.
but that was the first time before. That was when we were initially creating the table. I think.
Because you have rows that you're creating new columns for that are already in. So,
With this one.
like before, we didn't have any rows.
Yeah.
But are you asking if we don't have any rows and I update?
She was asking like why it didn't happen the first time.
Oh,
Right?
What was that?
No, she was.
so you were asking
Wasn't
what? You were saying if there's no rows and I change, there's already
I was
no
just
data.
saying why in the beginning we didn't have anything with
Sorry.
null and non-null.
Oh, okay.
So like why did it allow us to create a table without null and non-null?
Well, actually not.
No.
I was seeing what Josh was saying. Josh. Right?
So
So
rare.
if we
And
hadn't
I'm
put
right.
John in there, if we hadn't put John in there, if we hadn't put John in there, we could create another column that's not null.
I actually don't
Is
know.
what
the
I'm,
answer.
that's
I
what I'm
think
saying.
so.
Yeah, I don't know I don't know if it would ask you or not. If it reads if there's data or not, I'm not sure.
This is trying to get into the complexity of migrations, and when you're building your first app, I would advise you to just drop the table, create a new one whenever you're changing a table. If you want practice having fake data in there and doing migrations, that will be very beneficial, but also more difficult. I think we're ready for a break, right?
Let's finish this.
Let's finish this.
Let's go back
Oh,
to the terminal.
oh, this, right. Okay, what's in the table? Okay, it's the same.
You just made it.
We did migrate.
Right. Oh, do we want to look at the file or no? Yeah? 0002 student city.py. And it named it and everything for us. Okay.
And that operation that's telling what that's
Default
saying
is Chicago.
specifically what this migration did
What it is going to
going to do.
Yes. It hasn't happened yet.
So it comes up with those contexts, appropriate names. On
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yay! Migration.
Can I see that migration file one more time?
You'll notice on line 9 it says dependencies. It says in the students folder, there's a migration called 0001 initial. That one must execute before this one. When you do another migration, it will rely on number 2, which relies on number 1. So it'll always execute in order from 1 till X.
So you're saying, just using Amazon as an example, they probably have a lot of migrations. At any point, do they? I'm assuming. I mean, with such a huge company, you would just have migration after migration. That would eventually take a very long time to run through each one. No, or is it?
It's fractions of a second.
Okay.
If you have like 1 million migrations, yes, it'll take a long time. But generally speaking, we start talking about architecture, because if you have one app with 400,000 migrations, you probably have an app that's too big. You might want to split that into smaller ones. That's the whole idea behind microservices, which we'll talk about sometime next week.
Okay, let's take 15 minutes.
All right, so on